Yo, thanks for tuning in to another episode of the recap of Little Fires Everywhere. And of course, we have our returning guest, Lucid.
Lucid.
What up, Lucid? How you doing?
Just another day. How are you?
Another day. Da-na-na-na-na. Da-na-na-na-na. You don't know that song?
Is that Queen Latifah?
I think so, yeah.
You know, I know it all. Just joking.
Yeah, just another day in quarantine life.
Right? One day we're going to look back at this and laugh.
Yeah, like it's weird because I've actually had a few invites to go out, and I'm just like, no, like that's so irresponsible. So I realized that some people are just not staying home,
Hashtag stay home.
alone together.
Stay home together.
My goodness. But anyways, yeah, oh my God. Is there really just one more episode left?
I hope not. I hope it's not going to end. But you know what? They better get to the fire. I want to know about the fire. I want to know if it was Lexi, if it was Mia. So I hope they get to that in the last episode and they don't linger.
Like, it's so weird because I feel like we can't just have one more episode left. Like, there's too much that needs to be answered.
Yeah, but I feel like they got to a lot in this episode, even things they didn't fully get to. They kind of hinted a little.
Yeah.
Like Lizzie and her relationship with her friend. We've been wondering about that for a while.
Yeah. I was trying to look up to see how many episodes. I read somewhere 8, but I can't fathom that it's only 8, but whatever. All right, let's get into it. So I broke my notes up into like characters instead of scenes, even though they kind of flow with scenes. So we're going to talk about Izzy and her friends, Elena and Bill. Ooh, Elena and Bill.
Bill. Oh my gosh. I can't wait to get into that.
Okay, so the scene does open up though. Episode 7 opens up with Izzy and her friend, aka her friends with benefits actually. Walking to a kickback at their friend's house where they play spin the bottle, and Izzy and her friend end up going in the closet where they kiss. A girl opens the door and catches them, and her friend immediately pushes her and says, "Get off me. Trigger warning, you just molested me." Everyone stares at Izzy and she's completely shamed. Like, how did you react to that scene?
I thought it was interesting because isn't that what they wanted them to do? They wanted them to go kiss. Why were they shaming them for kissing?
Yeah, that was weird, right?
Weird ass kids.
It was like a loose end that I thought that they didn't really do well, because sometimes things happen like in movies, series, whatever, and you're just like, but wait, that doesn't really seem realistic. That doesn't make sense. Like, I'm puzzled.
You know
So
what I feel
yeah.
like it was? Sometimes people say they want you to do things, but depending on how you do it, they're not satisfied. But if you do it too much, it's a problem. I feel like they were too passionate. And I think that's why people were like, hold on.
And
we meant this to be a punishment, and it looks like you're enjoying it.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. I felt so bad for Izzy. Like, my heart sank when she did that. Like, her friend turned on her in 2.5 seconds. Less than that, actually. She turned on her in a milli.
Her little demon friend.
Right? So later on, the scene continues to later on in a few months. We see Izzy reach out to that friend for an art project. She asked for some Cabbage Patch dolls, and her friend says, "Yeah, come over."
Yep, I remember that.
And I thought it was so interesting. Not interesting, but it was nostalgic to see like the little old school interface for like IMing.
Right? What was she on?
Yeah.
AOL?
Probably 97. Yep, AOL.
She probably had to dial up.
Word. And it just goes to show the progression in social communication online. And so I thought that was interesting. But so yeah, her friend tells her to come over. She goes over and they have like a little heart to heart. And
Before we get into the heart to heart, can I talk about the computer? I
yeah,
think the fact that the computer in her room, who had that?
yeah,
Children didn't have that.
yeah,
That indicated some type of privilege and some type of class. Like you can tell they were
absolutely.
upper class because Izzy, the youngest daughter, had her own computer in her bedroom.
And and the like most disliked child.
Yep,
So that just goes to show their privilege. Yeah.
they're rich.
Rich to rotted.
Rich,
Um,
bitch.
so yeah, so they have this heart to heart. How did you feel about that whole
I
scene?
thought it was strange. I thought the friend was setting her up or something. I don't trust the friend. Would you?
Yeah, I was like, why did she even message her? Like, I mean, it was kind of like, so she messaged her. She had this whole idea for the art project because she went to school one day and saw somebody like doing a demonstration for BB. They were like selling cinnamon buns for like donations or something for Mei Ling.
Mm-hmm.
And so that's where she got the idea. And it reminds me of how sometimes we just conjure up things just to get somebody's attention. I'm not saying this is what Izzy did, but it just reminded me of that.
Maybe she was trying to get attention, but I also feel like it was kind of deep. I felt like what she did was kind of deep, especially for like a time like that, because she had the sign up and it said Lizzie's babies for sale. A white baby was $100,000. A Asian baby was $10,000, and then she put the McCalla special because they have an Asian baby. And remember, they threatened what's her name? They threatened
BB?
BB with the
Mm-hmm.
$10,000. That's why she put $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
And then she put for the black babies free.
Just take them.
Exactly. I thought that was kind of deep. She had a purpose for what she was doing. I think it was just perceived wrong.
Perceived wrong by who? By the school? By the kids?
By the school, by the kids. I don't even want to say it was perceived wrong by Mia, but I want to say, I think that's a whole nother conversation in terms of the dialogue that Mia and Lizzie had regarding it.
So you want to get into that?
Let's get into it. If you don't have anything else to say about Lizzie's project.
It's Izzy. Um,
You're right. Why do I keep calling her Lizzie today? Says about.
no, I don't have anything else to say about her project, but we can go back to Izzy and her friend in that heartfelt moment, and then we can go into the dialogue between me and Izzy.
All right.
The heartfelt conversation that Izzy and her friend had, I really felt like her friend, and this just goes to show my naivete. I really thought her friend was sincere. I thought she was going to change. I thought she had done some reflection and was sorry.
I didn't.
You didn't. You didn't buy it at all at first.
Never did.
Why is that?
She had no motive. Why would she? She's been like that for years. What would make her change? I feel like she might actually miss Izzy, but her image is way more important than being Izzy's friend. because she's at that age where social acceptance is very important. She being accepted by her peers is important. At that time, being a lesbian, that was shameful. You know, this was where like females and, you know, people from that community were just kind of getting a voice, but it still wasn't accepted, especially like within the younger demographics. That's a no-no, especially in Shaker, which is like heterosexual, wealthy, rich, and white. It has no place for something like that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I 100% agree with you. I think that from my perspective, I would have liked her to be genuine and to choose her friends and the truth, and not necessarily the truth as in like coming out, but just having like a real moment with your friend and apologizing, and just at least agreeing not to like embarrass her in the future, because then we see her friend embarrass her again at school when Izzy did her demonstration. Like, she didn't have to say, yeah, well, who has dolls in high school anyway? Like, she didn't have to say anything. Like, she could literally just ignore her. And like, I feel like that would be fine.
I feel like she did that because once she saw everyone else's reaction and it was negative, she had to disassociate herself again.
So
She
she
saw,
had to. She felt
yeah,
like she had to.
she
So
felt
it's
like
like,
she had to.
so
Exactly.
it's this game that you have to sort of keep up. It's this facade that you have to keep up. To me, that's exhausting. Like, I would be exhausted by it.
I think that was actually a really important theme in this episode. During their dialogue, Lizzie said to her, "Stop trying to be someone you're not." That's
Yeah.
pretty much what everyone in this episode is doing, trying to be someone or not. Everyone but Bill.
Bill,
My
Bill,
boy Bill.
you're my boy.
Right.
Let's just jump into Bill because okay, wait, no, let's not jump into Bill yet. Um, let's go back to the dialogue with Mia and Izzy. So, Izzy obviously gets in trouble. Not like that much trouble. Like, her mom just picks her up. Ooh, and that conversation they had in the car.
When she said it was hard being her mother, imagine
Yeah.
that shit.
Yeah.
Elena needs a good smack in the face.
She does. She does. Honestly, though, I feel like I've heard parents say much worse to their children.
I agree.
Um, I feel like, all right, we'll stick a pin in that. So the dialogue between Mia and Izzy I really liked because Mia says to her, um,
Mia
Mia
was going
says,
in.
she says, you're not an exception because you want to be. This place made you. I felt that.
I felt that too. I liked when Pryor, before they even got into that, she said the blackface is problematic.
Yeah. She said, you're a white girl in this town. You can't do things like that. And that's when she says, you're not an exception because you want to be. And I
To
was
me,
just like, bitch, ain't that the truth?
exactly. To me, that whole scene was like, you know, check your privilege at the door. This is my house, and we don't play there.
Mm,
I
mm,
love
mm,
when they
mm,
come in
mm.
her house, because when they come in her house, she tells it like it is. The
Word.
privilege does not protect them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's so interesting that that is Izzy's safe haven. Like, Pearl and Izzy are just crossing paths. Pearl is going over to Elaine's side. Izzy's going over to Mia's side. And it just goes to show that we're never satisfied with what we have.
Yeah.
We're
I
always
mean,
seeking something else.
yeah, I feel like we're also getting to see Mia and Lizzie's relationship blossom. You know, they're
Yeah.
bonding like, You know, initially when she found her, she said, I think I hate my mom. And then Mia said, I think I hate your mom too.
Right. Which was so powerful because I feel like for someone like me, like if I don't, it says a lot about your character for you to really dislike this person's mother and still be like good natured to that person's child. Like a lot of people don't have that in them. Do you see what I'm saying? And Mia does.
I
And I,
do.
and I really commend that, but I feel like it's about to get real messy real quick.
I also feel like it's the way that Mia does it. She does it from the heart, as where Elena does it, and it's
Yeah,
strategic, malicious.
yeah,
You know, it has no good intentions.
right,
Elena does not favor Pearl. Elena doesn't care for Pearl like she pretends she does.
right, right. And Mia actually cares for Izzy. Like Mia sees her, and Izzy appreciates that, and it's like reciprocal. And
I I feel like there's an underlying message in that because Mia sees every human for who they are, no matter what their background, their gender, how they choose to identify, as where Elena sees it as like a class thing, like, you know, you're this. This is not good. You know, good and bad. I feel like only Elena, good and bad only exists in Elena's world, where Mia sees people as human. Like Elena sees Bibi as trash, where Mia sees the human in her, the connection, and Elena doesn't realize how much she has in common with all of them.
maybe like Elena has suppressed a lot, like her emotions.
I thought it was interesting in court because a lot of Mia's responses, I felt as if knowing Elena's background, what we've learned about her, I felt like a lot of it also rang true to her. So I would have loved for them to zoom in on her for us to see how she was responding, even though she was the opposition.
Hmm.
Because a lot of what Mia was saying about motherhood, I felt that in terms of what Elena went through. So I wonder if that had some type of impact on her at all.
Yeah. Um,
Can we get into that scene or you want to get into that later?
um, I just want to say one thing about the conversation that Mia and Izzy had.
Mm-hmm.
Mia goes, "You don't get to challenge people, and they can't challenge you back." I love that.
I love that too.
Yeah, cause even though like Izzy has this like young sort of like hungry artist sort of spirit, and you wanna express yourself, Mia acts as like her teacher in saying, "Okay, that's great, but you don't get to challenge people without people challenging you back." She sort of um pushes her mindset, which, you know, pushes artistry. So I really like that they have that bond.
Yeah, I
Mm.
love that. And I feel like I agree with Mia saying to an extent because I think she sees the emotions that Izzy has and she just doesn't know how to channel them. So I love when Mia comes in and she's like, you know, as artists, like she does that little spiel with her so that she can relate to her and that she can kind of follow her lead in terms of channeling that energy into some type of artistic expression.
Mhm. Yeah. So you want to get into the trial?
Let's get into the trial.
All right, let's get into it. Start it off.
First and foremost, I would love to say that I was pleasantly surprised with how Mia handled herself in the courtroom. And I loved in particular the bathroom scene when they kind of came head to head in the bathroom.
Mhm.
I thought it was extremely reminiscent of Losing Isaiah. I don't know if you have you ever seen Losing Isaiah with Holly Berry.
Mhm.
Do
Yeah.
you remember the bathroom scene where she was washing her face and Holly Berry came out of the stall and they had that exchange?
No.
And the woman, because really the topic was, Isaiah belongs to her, but she's white, and her mother was a recovering crack addict who Holly Berry played. So she gave up her baby. She forfeited her rights. That was pretty much the storyline. And she was like, she said to the she said to Holly Berry, any animal can give birth. That doesn't make you a mother.
First of all, who you calling an animal, bitch?
Well, she was a recovering crackhead. I think that was where she was getting at that, like, because she threw her baby in the garbage can. And, this woman, the savior, air quote savior, she felt as if since she threw the baby in the trash can, she was a bad mother, was a negligent mother. And as a result of that, that didn't make her a good mother just because she gave birth. A good mother constitutes something else, which is like a underlying theme in this show, which I find to be very interesting. I think they play that
Yeah,
very well.
they do. And like just to talk about the whole good mother, bad mother thing for a second, like people make mistakes. Like every single one of us are human beings. Like although, you shouldn't throw your baby in a trash can and you shouldn't be on crack, like this life will fuck you up. Like life can be completely detrimental, especially for certain people in certain circumstances. And people are wired differently. Not everybody's out here walking around the same. So when you have all these different setups, like a different biological setup, different financial setup, like there's no even playing field here. So I just, like things like that are wrong and you shouldn't do them. And yes, it was negligent, but in my opinion, that doesn't mean you get to be called an animal. And it doesn't mean you get to have your baby taken away from you, especially if you're taking the steps to be a fit mother.
I,
So I don't know.
I love that you said that, because that was like a serious topic, especially between Bill and Elena. Did you notice how Bill was kind of, he's the voice of reason. Um,
Bill, I like
Yeah,
literally
because
fell in love with
Elena
Bill
was
this episode.
pestering him to begin with about, really grilling Mia about her past. Mind you, that was not part of the case at all. But Elena was the driving force behind that. And Bill was shutting that shit down. Bill was not having that. And I think Elena's true colors came out when, she got upset because initially remember how she got that information. She got that information from her little New York Times boo, and then she found out about Mia's parents and went to her parents, and that's how she found out the information about Pearl. So
Mm-hmm.
when she came back home, she was trying to cover up her little affair. So as a result of covering up her affair, she said to Bill, "I don't know why people don't blame Mia. She's the bad guy here, not me. And until people know the truth about what she did, they do blame me." And Bill said, "Linda is not going to lose her baby." And Elena said, "Why do you say that?" And Bill said, "Because people like BB Chow don't win. People like BB Chow." I think that really hit me, because what do you feel like he meant when he said people like BB Chow?
Non-white, non-financially stable people.
And I think, that goes back to like this haves versus haves not. BB didn't grow up with a silver spoon in her mouth either. She is in
Yeah.
she's not even a citizen yet. She's an aspiring citizen who just wants her child and is trying to make ends meet.
And it was interesting too during BB's testimony, when Bill was like questioning her, and she was like, well, I left the baby there because I was afraid that they would find out that I'm illegal and I would never see my child again. And so when you hear something like that as a judge, I don't know about any other judge in America, but if I were a judge, it would just ring to me how unfair the justice system is, because no mother should have to worry about her status as a citizen in regards to her baby. Like, the fact that she couldn't feed the baby and the fact that she went to this fire station and left the baby there because she felt like she could no longer do any more for her child,
Yeah.
or to get help, and the fact that, you know, she had to like hide behind the bushes or whatever the case was. I don't know, it just made it really clear to me how the justice system doesn't work, especially in family court.
Yeah. You know, initially I was sold. I thought BB did a great job, but when the other lawyer came in, when the opposing lawyer came in and put up that photo of the frostbit hand, and he
Yeah.
said, "Do you remember this?" And she was like, "No." And he was like, "That's you know, that was a baby's frostbit hand for being out there. What you did." I was like, "Oh shit, they got a point."
Yeah. And so he was like, "So which is it?" He's like, "Do you consciously abandon your daughter? Did you consciously abandon your daughter to seek help, or did you suffer from a postpartum break?" And then he said postpartum break, and then he did this motion with his hand near his head as if like she's crazy
Yeah.
and have no idea of the consequences of your actions. It can't be both. Actually, it can be both. Like, what do you mean?
And I feel like it's such a shame because BB has so much going against her. Her
Mhm.
status, the amount she makes, the fact
Mhm.
that she doesn't have any support, her family's not there, the father's not there. Who's gonna
Mhm.
help her with the baby?
And then it's like you go to another country to get a better life. Like, she might have been a refugee. Like, no, if she was a refugee, she wouldn't have to worry about her status. But um, it's like this whole immigration policy and everything, and how it's just like I can't even comment on it because I don't know much about it. But you should, the fact that the whoever, I guess what happened is, um I don't it was kind of unclear of if she left the baby and then left or not, because they say that I think BB says that she was at the fire station and they told her, oh, maybe she did leave and then came back like the next day looking for her kid or something like that.
I think they're referring to when she recently came back to look for her baby and ask. I believe she started
Oh, okay.
investigating and asking around. But when she dropped the baby off, she wasn't in the bushes waiting or looking. She pretty much she wasn't waiting. She didn't know if someone took the baby or not. They're referring to when she came back and realized what happened and then tried to find her baby.
See, I would have waited. I would have waited to make sure that because she said that she was banging on the door, right?
Yeah, but the lawyer mentioned that nobody answered. She didn't speak to anyone. She took
Hmm.
off because she was scared of them finding out about her status.
Oh yeah, so she felt like she had to leave because yeah.
Mhm.
And that's my point. That's like fucking ridiculous that we have to make those type of choices in this fucking country that's supposed to be so great. Like, it just doesn't make sense to me. And so what also irritated me about that whole story was how she said that, like, I guess a firefighter said to her when she returned, said to her, "Oh, well, we don't know where your baby is and you can't see her. You gave up that right when you left her here." It's like, excuse me, who the fuck are you? Are you a lawyer?
Well, I gotta play the devil's advocate here. She did
Wow.
drop the baby off with them, and they're not DCF. They're not in charge of children. They're just firefighters.
Right. Yeah,
So
but you don't get to say if I can or cannot see my baby because of an action I did. You're not a lawyer.
I think he was just irritated with her coming back and, the follow-up and everything after she did
Yeah, I get that, but
that.
I get that irritation, but don't be a fucking dickhead. Nobody asked you.
Yeah,
Like,
I think that goes back to like, you never know what someone's going through, so be kind.
like you really didn't have to be like a dickhead. You could have just been like, well, I don't know, but here's the police's number, you can call them, or here's whoever's number you can, and then keep it moving. Like, I don't need the extraness, especially if you're not a professional.
But you want to know what I thought was interesting? I feel like we did get something out of that, because I know initially we were talking about how there are really no other minority characters. Like, we don't have a lot of minority interactions to judge the attitude and the mentality of Shaker. But that alone shows that they don't really care for minorities either, like anyone.
No.
Because if that were a white woman from Shaker, a resident who was a part of Elena's family, saying they lost their baby, I think they would be a little more
Kind.
willing to help than
Mm-hmm.
they were
Yeah.
with Bibi.
Yeah, because they see a difference, and in our mind we disassociate with people that are different from us.
At that, she doesn't speak too well. In addition to that, we got to look at gender. She's a little frail woman, a little frail Chinese woman,
Right.
and these are firefighters. So you got to think they're either muscular or meatier, bulkier white men.
Yeah, that think that they know better and can intimidate. And
You know, yeah, that and then some, because it's like, we built Shaker to take care of our little white families, not you. We didn't even, that's not our job. Bitch.
girl, you said it. Wow, what a word. That's true. So let's get into like, all right, so going back to the bathroom scene, honestly, it reminded me of her like Cruel Intentions days. Like, no, she wasn't like that in Cruel Intentions. But anyways, Elena's demeanor, her facial expressions, for the first time throughout this whole season, I saw her 100% as the villain in that scene. Like, her villainess came alive.
I must say, Reese Witherspoon is doing a great job playing Elena,
Mm.
because usually Reese Witherspoon is some annoying ditzy someone. Now she is this character that has substance, and we hate her, and we're supposed to hate her. And I like that.
Yeah. She really gets into the psyche of like a crazy person,
She really does.
a crazy normal person.
Yep.
So yeah, and then she says, think about Pearl. Is it really worth it? Losing your child to save another? And then Mia gets so shaken up by this, which we don't really see. She gets so shaken up that she goes to BB and says, hey girl, I don't look. I don't know if I can do this. And then BB's like, but sorry. But BB's like, but you have to. Which I thought was so fucking like inconsiderate. Like, I get it, but it's like, girl, I did so much for you already. Like,
I'm kind of glad. Sorry.
what?
But I'm kind of glad that scene happened between her and Elena, because I feel like that kind of put a fire under her to speak with Pearl. I feel like if that didn't happen, she would never tell Pearl the truth. How old is Pearl and she knows nothing?
Facts.
Yeah, Elena was the bad guy. It was not her place, but that whole bathroom scene in general, that kind of opened the floodgates to her having to speak with
Mm-hmm.
Pearl. She should have did it sooner.
So speaking of Pearl and Mia, so Pearl curses Mia out for
Oh my
basically growing
god.
poor. Um, so I guess, coming off of that scene with Trip, where Trip spills the beans about Mia's supposed, pot of gold, and and Pearl is just so confused by it. So she goes home, and Mia talks to her. And Mia finally, like you said, musters up the strength to sort of tell her this information. And then Pearl does not give her the reaction that she wanted.
If you were Pearl, would you? Like, I don't even know how I would react if I grew up in these dire, poor circumstances to the point where I'm living in my car. I've never had a room of my own. Remember, Pearl never had a room of her own, which is why it was such a powerful scene, because she had a room to kick her mother out of. I can't imagine how she could have dealt with something like that when they were living in their car. But then just even thinking about that, do you think they ever had conversations like that, drag out arguments like that when they were living in the car together? I think it's funny that they're talking about material items and money. And, now knowing that Mia has money, it's worse than when they were in the car. They were happier. It's kind of just like more money, more problems. Even though they don't even have the money, they're arguing. Like their relationship, which was once very close when they thought they had nothing, is being torn apart.
Mm-hmm. I think um that's a great like connection that you had with Pearl being able to kick her mom out of her room.
Yeah.
um I think that it's hard for me to relate to Pearl in this circumstance because I am a mother, and I just feel like kids, they feel so entitled to things, and it's like, boo. Like, it's not like Mia did this on purpose. Do you see what I'm saying? Like, even when I think Pearl said something like, "Did you not want me to have a room? Did you not want this?" And then Mia was like, "No, no, no." So even though she could have sold this piece, it was so important to her that she held on to it for some reason. So as women, as people, we make our own choices based off of whatever reasoning, based off of our experiences, based on our perspective, whatever. So I didn't like Pearl. I just feel like Pearl is being really like entitled, even with her going to Moody's house and having that relationship with their family, and how she was so excited to be in, you know, in proximity with like wealth, and how she's being
Yeah.
like dazzled by it is disheartening for me, because it's just, all that glitters ain't gold. Like, we know that as, fully formed adults, but I don't, it's just, mm,
I
I
feel
don't like
Pearl.
how she's being, like, too into like materialistic things. But I get it though. Like, I understand why she feels slighted,
Mhm.
but I hope she doesn't get consumed by it.
I really do feel Pearl, because I feel like Shaker and Lexi, Trip, Moody, because mind you, those are the only people she hangs around. So, just being in that affluent neighborhood, and I feel like in school as well, I feel like that opened the floodgates. Like it was like Pandora's box,
Hmm.
because she didn't know that world existed. It wasn't something that she thought was ever attainable, but now she's put in this town where everyone else has it. And I feel like she is looking at Mia like, well, you're kind of choosing that painting over me, or that picture over me,
Yeah.
because we were sitting here suffering, and there were so many things that I could have used. We could have had a better quality of life, and you made that choice.
And that's interesting too, because when she was talking to Trip, she said, remember how she was saying that she used to like dress up in like her neighbor's clothes, or whoever that was clothes, like I guess like her mom's roommate or something clothes.
Yep. She said they were subletting a room in someone's home, and there was a girl who lived in the room, and she would pretend that it was her stuff. And she had a very powerful quote during that conversation. She said, "I always had what I needed. but I never had what I wanted.
Yeah. And which also makes me feel like she's being entitled because you're not entitled to things that you want. It's nice to have things that you want, but really a mother's job is to provide you with the things that you need.
I
And
get that, but
and
I don't feel like that's entitlement, especially when you're in proximity to someone like Lexi, who's getting tartan Yale emblem sweaters for stealing your essay, getting into an Ivy League university. You see someone who's being rewarded all the time for being a horrible person.
yeah, I feel like Pearl is slowly climbing that whole entitled staircase because just the things that she says and the way she treats her mom, she's just I think she is being consumed by it
I don't feel like she's in,
slowly but surely.
because she came up like pretty much dirt poor, living in this car. I feel like she just wants some type of normalcy.
We'll
Like,
see.
yeah, I don't
Yeah.
think that I don't feel like she's asking for too much. She's not asking for like,
No, she's not. She's not, but she's letting things like that fuck up her and her mom's situation.
hey, that's the age. Remember, I was telling you that story about begging my mom for sneakers and clothes, because that's the age. It's so important to fit in with your peers, especially to even keep up with appearances. Remember, Lexi was buying her clothes at one point, so in Moody bought her the bike, and it's like her mother never bought her anything. Her mother can only make her things.
Hmm. But which is what saddens me because it's like now all of a sudden this isn't enough. Now all of a sudden, you know, we don't have this great connection like we used to. Like uh, Pearl being there is messing up their relationship.
Yeah, I don't feel like it ever was enough. I just feel like she looked at it like, well, it's what we have, so it's fine. And I kind of think that's also how she sees Moody versus Trip. Like, Moody was, cool, but Trip is this who she wants to be, like her
Yeah,
ideal self, and Moody
yeah,
is who she really is.
yeah. And I don't know this about Izzy, but it sort of seems like Izzy would fare better being her daughter. It just seems like Izzy's okay with less. I don't know.
I feel like Izzy is only okay with less because she is rebelling. The same thing, I think the same thing Mia said rings true to her. Like, that town made you. So I feel like she kind of takes, the money and the wealth and being able to have what she wants for granted, because she doesn't understand being on the other side. I think she just does it to rebel because, she wants an identity. She wants an identity separate from the perfect and the wealthy and the traditional norm. But in certain aspects, she is still, a shakerite, if that's a word. She's a shakerite. She comes from money. You can't really erase the fact that you come from money just because you identify you have a different sexual orientation than someone else.
Yeah. Um, all right, let's get into Lexi and her BB,
Lexi
her
and Baby,
her black boyfriend.
Brian, my
I
boy,
feel I feel
Brian,
like we
my
need
boy.
names. I feel like we need names for these people.
I
Like,
like Brian now. I love how he's really. I feel like we predicted everything that was going to happen to them in the first episode 6 when we did that episode. I
mhm.
feel like we predicted everything that was going to happen to them.
I find it interesting how their first real conversation about race is when they break up.
Again, I felt like he was trying to break up with her from the very beginning. It was just a whole nother dynamic of their relationship when they started having sex. So he was staying around for the sex because he was fed up with her then. He'd been fed up with her. So that's why all he wanted to do was
So
have.
why do you think he's been fed up with her? Because like the whole, just her being like this sort of confused white girl.
I feel like I feel like the McDonald's scene was just a nail in the coffin for Brian. I feel like that was just it. I feel like he was tolerating everything she was doing with Pearl because he was saying, "Look, well, you know, she leveled up. She gave me her virginity. I gotta let that go. Pearl's not my girlfriend." So he was just letting that slide. But then when he realized, look, it's not just Pearl; it's other Black people. He realized, look,
Yeah.
okay, this is the problem. It's not just Black people; it's also BB. She thinks BB is this way because she's this background. So I feel like he kind of started putting it together. I feel like he knew from the beginning. He was just getting what he could out of her while he could. It was his senior year. So I feel like this was
Yeah.
his plan all along. Uh, I've been seeing them kind of drift apart since he called her out at the prom um, for stealing Pearl's essay. I feel like they started drifting apart since then.
And I'm
So
kind of glad that this character isn't like one of those Black guys that like shits on Black people just to be like stay within good graces of like white people. Like he is this Black guy who, presumably hangs out with white people, I think. But he doesn't sort of shit on his own race. Like he has his blinders off for the most part, at least, when it comes to race. So I'm glad his character is like that and not like, I don't know who to compare it to, but the first person that comes to mind is like Carlton Banks. I
I
don't know
feel
if
like
you can
Carlton
think of
Banks
any.
wasn't bad. You think he was bad?
That's the first person that just came to mind, as in someone who's just not connected, someone who's unaware, someone who I can't think of a character like that off the top of my head, but I'm sure there are in movies.
Oh, I'm sure there are. I can't think
Um,
of either.
but yeah, like, because I feel like we see that a lot. Like, for me, in my own personal experience, I've seen that just growing up in the suburbs and seeing how this one person has like a white girlfriend or like a white crew and how they kind of disassociate themselves from other Black people.
You
So
called it though.
it doesn't really seem like he's like that.
You called it from the very beginning. You said he just with her for a look. I feel like that's all it is. I feel like that's all it was. She's this rich, wealthy girl who is white and affluent. Her mother has this luxurious house. She has all this money. She drives around in a truck.
And
My
it's a come up. It's a come up.
Mhm.
Like I remember I had this crush, I would say. I don't know if it was a crush, but there's this white guy that I thought was like so attractive. Like he was so beautiful. And so we would flirt like back and forth or whatever. I was with someone and he was with someone and he was seeing someone who had dough. And in the back of my mind, I was like, I know he would never leave her for me because that just doesn't make any sense. Why would I leave this person who's so affluent, has all this money, and I could benefit from this person to be with like this regular chick? Nah.
I think
So,
there's a chance. You want to know why? Because where there's money, there's power. If she has more money than him, he might not be able to control her the way he could control someone without money. He could use that money as leverage.
yeah.
Some people are like that.
And I
Like
thought it
Lena.
was also interesting too with Lexi at the dinner table. Remember when her mom calls her down and she's telling her, she's like toasting her to her getting into Yale, and she's saying, and you deserved it, you worked hard, and you didn't get it by to fill some quota, you didn't
Yeah.
get it blah blah blah, you got it on your own because you worked hard, and that's hard work. I'm like, it's hard work to work. I was so confused by her logic. Like, she has all the Elena worked so hard to give her children all the advantages. And she has the nerve to tell her child that they did like, she made it seem like they did like strenuous work. Like you had this whole shit set up for you. This shit is set up for you. All you gotta do is walk.
You know what
That's
I feel
not
like is
hard
gonna
work.
happen? You know, I feel like it's reminiscent to when they were at the dinner table and she was saying, I'm going to get in Yale. And she was talking about, oh, it's so hard to find a struggle and an obstacle. Do you remember like when we were first introduced to them at the dinner table? That was when she made the comment about affirmative action to Pearl. And she had this attitude like, well, basically I'm the best, and basically I'm entitled, and finding a struggle is so hard. Now fast forward to this episode, she's sitting at that same table in that same spot, and she's embarrassed. I feel like in some
Yeah.
twisted way, when her mother is saying sacrifice, she is using her abortion as some um as some way to empower herself that she has sacrificed something, or that she had an obstacle. So now she's sitting at the table with an obstacle. She didn't have that life experience before, and her mother is saying, you worked hard. And I feel like she is pretty much embarrassed because of what happened to her. But I feel like that's what she's thinking of as her mother is saying, you worked hard and you sacrificed. So I think the guilt is going away, because before she was guilty of stealing Pearl's stuff. But now that she actually went through something small, she feels like she really did sacrifice and she has it so hard. Even Brian called her out on it. He was like, what's so difficult about your life? Like, I'm a Black man. Do you know what my life is like?
I don't think so. I don't think that Lexi I think that Lexi feels embarrassed. I don't feel like she feels like she, not that she doesn't deserve to go to Yale, but when you see the camera pan to her, it looks like her face is in like disarray when her mom is like toasting her. 'Cause
Yeah.
she doesn't seem happy. And I think, well, the fact that she just broke up with her boyfriend because of race and all these things, I think Lexi is taking in her mother's words and feeling so disoriented by them because she just went through this breakup with her Black boyfriend who's basically telling her that like she's being really problematic. and
Yeah.
and then her mom is sort of saying the opposite. And so she's taking in these two different messages and she doesn't know how to like compute and make sense of it. And so we see her in like this sort of confused state.
You're right. She is kind of getting so many mixed messages, because I thought it was powerful when Brian even brought up to her, like, I'm going to Princeton. What do you look at me as? Because it seems like you look at, Black people as uneducated. I'm a Black man going to Princeton while you're going to Yale. Like, do you feel like I'm just going to Princeton to fill a quota? And that was like a
Yeah.
part of their conversation, in which she never really said, no, that's not true. If you notice, she never defended that and said it wasn't true.
Right.
She just kind
Right.
of started reflecting back to her about what's going on with her, even though
Mm-hmm.
she never really spilled the beans. Do you feel
Which,
like she should tell him?
huh?
Do you feel like she should tell him about the abortion?
Oh, I'm glad you brought that up. I thought she was going to. She was so close.
I feel like she does that all the time. Like, she doesn't want to share her personal information, but she was like put in a corner. I feel like she deflects all the time. When she was pregnant, she was deflecting. Now she was deflecting to get him to stop talking about Black and stop talking about how hard he has it. But she never actually said what she needed to say. Like, I feel like he's tired of it. I think he sees it.
And it didn't help that when she was about to tell him, he kind of gave her the look like, what? What you gotta say? She
Yeah. He's like, what can you possibly say about hardship? What can you possibly say about what I'm telling you about my experience?
No, like when so remember she was about to tell him, yeah, like she was about to say, well, I just went through something and he was
Yeah.
like, what?
He's
Um,
waiting.
yeah. I just feel like it was probably a smart move not to tell him. I don't know if it'll, get back to him some way somehow, and there really isn't anything you can do about it at that point. But um it was gonna end, right? And
Yeah.
I think I think it's really important for us to, especially when we're young and when we enter into these relationships, it's important for us to choose the right people to date. Based off of that, you are more likely to start a family with someone who's upstanding, someone who shares the same morals, values, someone who you're compatible with. And them bringing a baby into their very weird dynamic wouldn't have probably wouldn't have ended up great. So she probably made the right decision by not telling him that she went through with the abortion. Now, how do you feel about, do you think that takes something away from him? Like, do you think that men deserve to know or have it like a say so?
I think he made it clear that he didn't want a child when he said he'll be like a walking cliche and he's not ready to be a father for a while. I feel like that conversation showed his true colors. He was not trying to do that with her at that time. She knew that. So what good would it do for her to even say anything? Again, I feel like she just brought it up simply because she was being grilled about the privilege and, you know, the racism thing, and
Yeah.
she needed something else to use to deflect. I don't think she was ever, I think she was close to telling him, but just knowing Lexi's character, it would have been nice to see a real moment between her and someone on the show, because we haven't seen that yet. So part of me wanted her to tell him because I just wanted to see some type of genuinity in her.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I wonder how he would have reacted.
I feel like he'd been through with her. And you know what's funny? We predicted that, you know, they were gonna end. I feel like some more people are gonna end, you know? That was a big theme at the end when everyone was like, oh, I just got dumped. I think Lexi said, I just got dumped. Izzy said, me too. I feel like that was like a big theme because I feel like there's a lot of foreshadowing that Bill and Elena it's not a honeymoon anymore.
Oh, let's get into Villa later.
Bill,
Okay.
yo, Bill was slick with the comebacks. My boy Bill was slick with the comebacks. When she came back and she was like, I don't know why you're trying to act like I done something wrong. He's like, what's going to New York and abandoning your family to go play Nancy Drew?
Yeah.
My boy
Yep.
Bill.
And he said it like a straight shooter too. He was like, "Oh, word? So abandoning your family and going to New York to play Nancy Drew?"
Oh yeah. But he's playing a little Nancy Drew of his own.
Oh, he sure is, honey, and he got the results in. Did you see the receipt or
Yep.
whatever that was?
Yep.
Bro,
The Magnolia Bakery. It had the what was it, that restaurant?
the
It also
restaurant and
had the Barrack Hotel.
the cameras zoomed in on like two guests. I was like, "Oh shit."
And he called the restaurant.
Yeah, he got like all the info for like, I don't know if he got Jamie's info. I don't
I
know
don't
if
know
he
what
was
he got.
able to see, but he definitely um got the restaurant name, how many people were there. Um but I love the way he handled her this episode.
Me too.
Like for the first time we see him like putting his foot down. And that sounds so patriarchal for me to say. Um, but she needs to be wrangled in. Like, stop.
She really does. She's out of control.
Like, and it was interesting too, that scene where you said it earlier with her saying, "Oh, like I don't know why people are blaming me. They need to blame Mia." And then she's like, "Well, you know, everybody needs to be held accountable." And he was like, "Everybody will be held accountable." And I feel like he was saying that to her. Like, you gonna be held accountable too, bitch.
Exactly. That's a great point. I feel like what he was saying was also to her. He's so
Yeah.
slick with it. This
That was to her, yo. That was to her. 100%. 100%. My boy was like, yo, imagine telling your wife, no, don't go. And she just goes anyway without the blink of an eye, without a care, without anything. Just leaves and ends up staying for longer than 2 days. And then she comes back like it was nothing. And he's supposed to just sit there and take it.
I feel like she thought it was okay because she no longer had her freedom of work anymore, and he was out all the time for work. But that's not equivalent to you going to see your little guy in a whole nother state while your babies are crying at home with your husband.
But see, now I think that Bill is going to get it fucked up a little. I mean, he's definitely going to accuse her of cheating. But I think that what he fails to realize, or maybe he does realize this, is that she's more obsessed with Mia and whatever it is that she has going on in her psyche that can't like calm herself down than she is in like starting a new life or like having an affair with Jamie.
You're
I feel
right.
like
That's
he's
her love being a pest to Mia.
right.
And I feel like, it bothers her that he isn't on board because that's his wife. He's supposed to be on board. And, Mia's supposed to be the bad guy because she's not like them. Like, there's this big thing like them and like us. She's not like them. So how dare you defend this girl? She's not like that. She's not like us. She's not wealthy, uh she is an artist, or is she? I think also Elena feels some type of way because she thought, she thought the way she was treating Mia was justified. Like, oh, I was helping her because she was poor. So you weren't going to help her if she needed something and she might have had some money. I feel like it's just this kind of, I don't want to say it, but it is kind of this white savior complex where it was like,
Yeah.
it was only okay when she was poor. It was only okay to be her friend when you thought she had less than you. But now that you know she has a bunch of money,
It's not okay. It's like, how dare she? And it's like,
exactly.
how dare you fool me? Like, bitch, I didn't fool you. You fooled your fucking self by making these assumptions.
And Elena doesn't have that type of money, and she's supposed to be the wealthy one. Remember, her job doesn't pay well. The benefits are not good. Nobody reads that publication.
And her mother and her mother offered her that house, not saying that they couldn't afford something like that with Bill's salary, but let's face it, Mia is more accomplished than you are, even though you look more accomplished than she does.
Yep. And that bothers her that this woman had $500,000, quote unquote, saved up, and she don't have a dime to her name. It's only her husband's money. She's like, how dare she? That was my maid. I gave her my resources from my husband. But I think she's jealous because Mia got that all by herself. Her name Warren wasn't because of a husband. Remember, she was initially thinking it was because of a husband, like, oh, well, maybe her husband helped her. Maybe her husband did this. She realized Mia didn't have a husband. So she couldn't say that everything Mia has is because of some man, while that's not the same for her. Everything she has is pretty much because of her wealth, her background, and who she chose. Mia is a self-made woman.
I think this show and the characters, in particular Reese's character, we see her being confronted with her racist self. I think that's the point of this show, like, to be confronted with ourselves. Like, even that scene where um Reese admits to, she doesn't admit to it, but Bill says, oh, so you threatened her, like that whole bathroom scene. And she's like, no, I just, we had an understanding. And he's like, great, here you are fucking shit up and I might be accused of this or whatever. And it's kind of like it ties back to also Mia's professor and how she was saying like we need to like welcome and confront our ugly selves.
Oh,
And I feel like this is what this show is doing for me, like with understanding who Reese is, because I've been struggling to figure out, well, is she racist? Is she not? Is she this? Is like I'm not able to figure it out because you made a point too earlier on in the episode, like I think episode 5, where you were just like, well, I don't think Mia's is Elena is this racist person. I think she has good intentions, but like she just like her intentions aren't bad, but she just does like fucked up shit.
yeah. I still don't think she's racist. I don't.
I'm struggling to figure out what it is then. Like what is it about, so she happenstance upon Mia, and then she starts treating Mia this certain type of way. Like even with her saying, oh well, do you want to like work for me?
It's
And then
privilege. Everything with
privilege.
Elena is power and like the power dynamics. That's important to her. Influence. That's important to her. That's why Lexi sings with sings in the choir, singing Christmas carols. That's why they're a part of all these organizations. That type of power and influence is important to people like Elena. I don't think it's anything to do really in particular with race. I feel like because rich and white is her background, she may see black and poor as synonymous because that's everything that's different from her. And
But
I
then
think
why
that's why
say things like, "Oh, well, you didn't get into Yale because you filled some quota," and da 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 da. And like even with her mentioning, with Lexi's BB mentioning every time I walk in the house, your mom is always saying how your grandmother marched with Martin Luther King. Then why say all these little things then if you're not racist? Like
I
I
feel
don't.
like those are like uh talking points that she uses because people in affluent areas are have an affluent lifestyle, especially when they're white and they come from money. There's this underlying theme that their money stem from slavery, or that they got their money on the backs of black people. So I feel like she always feels like she has to justify, no, I'm not racist because she is wealthy, not necessarily because she's quote unquote racist, but because with that territory, with that status comes bigotry. You know, it might not be racism, but it might be bigotry. It could be discrimination. You know, I feel like that's her life, being the rich white woman. So anything out of that her element, she's gonna fight it because that's what she thinks is different. I think that's what the message of the show in general is people, everyone isn't realizing how much they're all the same regardless of their economic background or what their role is in society. So Elena is relating to all these mothers, whether they be black, Asian, rich, poor, $300,000 in the bank or not, on a level that has no significance to society, has no significance in her little wealthy world. And it's like there's value, there's currency in other things.
Here's why I think Elena's racist. Because when she threatened Pearl in the bathroom, basically threatening to take her kid away if she intervened, that's racist. Because you know good and well what will happen to someone like Mia. I mean, her husband knows too. I mean, he said it. People like Mia, people like BB don't win. So it's not like she's completely aloof to this shit. So
Yeah,
that's why I feel like she's racist, because she's more than willing to uh what's the word? She's more than willing to put Mia into these circumstances that would be detrimental for her.
I don't think that's racism. I think that's privilege. That's her shifting around the power she has that comes along with being white. Like, again, I don't
But
even
that is racist because you're playing into a system that will not give Mia the same opportunity, the same voice that it would someone like Elena.
I think that's more so discrimination, because if you flip it and it comes to something like male or female or like colorism, that it's not called racism, but it's still going on in these communities. The same actions are still playing out. People are
So
using their privilege to control or dominate someone who doesn't have it. And that's why I'm saying I don't think it's like racism, because she's not saying I don't want you to do this because you're Black. She's saying I want things to work out this way, so I'm using my power and my influence to shift the dynamic so that you don't win.
and I'll do that by any means necessary, even if
Exactly.
that means throwing you into a racist court system. To me, that is a racist action.
I mean, the racist court system is not something that Elena could even control, so that's not a racist action on her behalf. The court system been racist before Elena was in it or before Mia was in it.
Okay, and she's aware of that. So the fact that she's willing to throw her into that system,
That's her privilege, because her husband is the lawyer and she is the white influential woman. That's not racism.
I think that's a racist act.
I
I
think
think
it has to directly insinuate Black or white or something. I'm doing this because I hate you, or I don't feel like that does it. I feel like she's just shuffling her privilege, her white privilege. Yes. I feel like, there is a race dynamic, but it's not racism per se. Any woman take away race, because okay, BB is not Black, BB is Asian, but BB's also poor. BB is also in a situation where she's impoverished, so she used the money to try to control her. Her using the money to control BB isn't racist either. That was her privilege. She used what she had to try and change the outcome. She knows the legal system is on her side. The legal system being on her side that doesn't have any race markers on it. It's just the issue that the race, the legal system doesn't work in Mia's favor, but that's not Elena's doing.
I
That's
mean,
just the way it is.
I see what you're saying, but I feel like even if it's not technically racism, even her being prejudiced towards Mia, we see her being prejudiced by the way she even talks in front of her kids about race. So I feel like that is like a step away from
Yeah,
like,
I agree with prejudice. I think that's a better word to describe Elena than racist, because she doesn't hate Black people, and she made that clear by giving Elena her place for free. She hated Black people.
I feel like we don't give enough. I think we let a lot of things slide though with white people and just their actions and how their actions can put Black and brown people in some pretty dangerous situations.
I don't feel
Like
like it's fair to do that to her.
even her even threatening Pearl, even though she's using her privilege and she's not being like racist per se, even her threatening Pearl, knowing that the court system and the justice system is set up to not really help Black people. To
I feel like
me,
it's a slippery slope.
that's fucking insane. That is so fucking like mean spirited and just evil that I can't.
I feel like Elena has those evil tendencies, but I feel like it's a slippery slope, because it's like, yeah, Elena really didn't create the legal system. She's just using her little white privilege, to get what she wants. And even when you look at like a Mia versus BB, like I feel like, the whole, Black and brown thing, Mia's issue is completely different from BB. So it's like the way that, different communities are controlled are in two different manners. While the brown population is controlled by the law and immigration, Black people, especially Black people in the United States, are controlled in other ways, like income, like neighborhoods, like the education system. I
Mhm.
feel like, it it's the same in terms of, yes, someone who is white and affluent using their privilege, but it's different in the way that they use it.
Right. Yeah. Um, all right, so let's get into Elena. What's her name? Elena?
Yeah, Elena.
Okay, so I feel like we need names for these people. Like
Like,
fun names. Like, well, maybe not. Like,
what are we gonna call her? SWM? SWF.
What's that?
Never mind.
Okay. All right, we'll get back to the names. But okay, so Elena and Lexi. Not Elena and Lexi, Elena and Izzy. So there's a dinner scene where Elena says to Bill, "Call your daughter down here. This is a big moment." You remember that?
Oh, for the photos or for the dinner?
The dinner.
Okay, yeah, I remember that when she was upstairs doing her little AOL moment.
Mm-hmm.
You've got me.
And it sounds simple, but we start to realize that Elena disassociates from her daughter in totality. Like in this episode, there's so many instances where I mean, besides the big one, which is, when she cut off her picture. Remember when she cut off her picture and Bill looked at her like, damn.
Yeah. I feel like they're like oil and water, but they're the same. They're one and the same, but they're oil and water.
How do they, I don't understand that. This is what puzzles me about this too, that I can't wrap my head around. Is like, how does Bill love her? What are her qualities that he loves?
Elena is so traditional. Like I see that she's so traditional. She is really like, serious about this tartan plaid. When she said like, it's the tartan that makes the photo. Everybody got to wear their tartan. And tartan is like, really like an upper echelon pattern. It's like the signature Ralph Lauren plaid pattern. And it's associated with wealth. It's also associated with Scotland. Like that's a Scottish pattern. So it's like, this is a symbol. The tartan is really symbolic to like her status. That shit is very important to her. And it's funny because while Elena is like Ralph Lauren, Izzy's over there like Hot Topic, so they really just don't mix.
She over here like Spencer's and shit.
She like Spencer's, yeah. She like Marilyn Manson, while Reese, what's her name? Not Elena's over there like American Eagle Outfitters.
Yeah, she's like Banana Republic.
I love Banana Republic.
Oh, it's Banana Republic?
Yeah, what did you say?
I said Banana.
Banana Republic, her little imaginary world.
So at the photo shoot, Lexi complains about her attire. They end up getting into like this little power struggle that was really hard to watch.
Yes, Izzy.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, Izzy. So Izzy asks, "Why can't you call me Izzy?" And then Elena reminds her, what does she say? Do you remember?
You don't deserve it? I don't remember.
She says, "You're not like everyone else."
Okay, yeah, because she made that point. She was like, well, you call Moody Moody, you call Trip Trip. Lexi is called Lexi. Her name is Alexandra. She did make that point.
Yeah. I thought that was so like, that's just another example how we see that she disassociates herself from Izzy. And it's really interesting because I was trying to put myself in like her mindset, because we all know that she did not want Izzy. Not Izzy as a person, but she did not want another pregnancy.
Yeah.
And the fact that that choice was sort of subtly taken away from her, like we often blame women, and I'm saying women because we're talking about pregnancy. We often blame women for not speaking up for themselves, for not having autonomy and their own voice. And not even that. We often blame women for the choices that they make. And even though nobody put a gun to her head and said, have this baby, there was this sort of invisible gun to her head.
Facts.
And so she went through with this pregnancy and she did not want it. That's just what it is. She did not want that pregnancy. And so I'm wondering if Izzy is the way she is because her mother has been disassociating and just making Izzy feel like other, or if Izzy is just this natural, like rebellious, sort of artsy type person. Because we often do see with artsy type people, oftentimes they grow up in situations where they had to fend for themselves, or they can identify with loneliness, or just identify with feeling like the black sheep or other. And it's like you sort of gravitate to the arts because that's your outlet. So what
I
do you
think
think about that?
I think you make a great point about Izzy kind of being other. I feel like you're right, because Elena does other her. Her school others her, her friends other her, like society others her, everybody but Mia others her. But I feel like they may other her because she others herself. Like she knows what the norm is, but she refuses to play along. She knows that, the tartan is important to the family, but she refuses to play along. She knows that, image is important, but she just refuses. I feel like her character is the rebel. So because she defies society, that's just a part of her character. Society defies her. Remember when she played the game? Remember when she was pretending to like the boy and they went to the dance together? Remember how Elena treated her? Elena didn't other her when she did that. The dynamic completely changed.
Mm-hmm.
But she couldn't keep up that facade. So, once things went back to her being having her own unique style, that's when their relationship went back to being the way it was.
So do you think that Izzy is rebellious, or her, has this unique style because she refuses? It, to me, it kind of, maybe Izzy's, okay, so maybe from a young age, I feel like maybe Izzy felt like her mom was treating her differently. And so maybe she internalized that and said to herself, well, if you're going to treat me so differently, I am going to be different then. Instead of trying to be perfect, like you said, she knows like what she should do in order to fit in.
Yep.
It's like, because she has had these experiences with her mom where she's felt like other, maybe she's just saying, well, fuck it then, I'm gonna be other. And
And
it's got to be a painful experience to, because it's sort of like emotional wounds just keep on getting like scratched, or like she just keeps on taking those shots from her mom. Meanwhile, she knows that she could just be quote unquote normal and not get those shots as
yep.
much. So to me, I don't know if this is who Izzy naturally is or not.
I feel like there's a place in society for people like Izzy. And I feel like, the 90s was really a time where so many women who had the same style as Izzy, broke barriers. I feel like, when you look back like at a Gwen Stefani or even in Alanis Morissette, I think they do a really good job of using, like, they haven't used any No Doubt music, which I'm surprised about, but using a lot of those powerful female voices, because I feel like, Izzy is kind of a representation of that. The person who is the outcast, the person who is the loudest, the feminist, sometimes even like the alternative in a world full of banana republics, as you said, in a world full of these Tommy Hilfiger, in a world full of Ralph Lauren. She is the goth. She's the hot topic. She is the alternative. And I feel like that's how she prefers for it to be. I think it's just innate in her. But I think you make a great point about, we don't know, because it's like, what came first, the chicken or the egg? Was it because is it that her character was molded by how Elena treated her and how Elena felt about her when she was pregnant? Do you feel like she really just didn't stand a chance because Elena was so torn about the pregnancy? Or do you feel like, she had this child and this is just naturally how she is, regardless of what happened
Mm-hmm.
when her mother was pregnant? It's just her character, and it would have been her character regardless.
Maybe. I mean, we do see the other kids sort of pretend, especially Lexi.
Yeah.
Lexi breaks down in episode 7, and when she's when her and BB is having this conversation, she's just like, and you don't understand the pressure to be perfect for my mom. And
She got high expectations, so even she's feeling it.
yeah, so we don't even really know who Lexi is either.
You know what that actually reminded me of? Love Don't Cost a Thing, when the character that Christina Milian played, I remember when she kind of started straying away from the spotlight because she got embarrassed, and then she started doing her alternative I sing and play guitar, thing, instead of being the popular girl, because she kept talking about how hard it was being popular. I mean, give Pearl a chance then if it's so damn hard.
Yeah, because Pearl is waiting.
She
She's
really
waiting
is.
for her chance.
Mind you, she's bagging. She's getting the dudes. Everybody loves Pearl, Give her a chance then. Let her be
Speaking of
popular.
which, let's talk about Pearl and Trip.
Let's talk about them. Pearl been lying, saying she's going to that black organization, and Brian sold her out on accident. I think if he knew, he would have covered for her, because I feel like he's really on it now,
Yeah. Moody needs a girlfriend. Moody needs a girlfriend. That's not Pearl, because it's not happening.
I wonder why Pearl did that. I mean, I get it. I have an idea, but it's like, did she think about what the effect would be in terms of the community, in terms of the family she's breaking up? You cannot hop. I'm not gonna say it. I'm gonna say it. You can't hop from brother to brother, like, and then just think she's gonna be cool.
But she wasn't
You hang
hopping.
out in their house.
But she wasn't hopping. She was never with Moody. Moody and her were just.
Was.
Oh no, they kind of were, because they were like holding hands and shit.
They kissed. Remember? Didn't they kiss? But she did it all the way with Trip.
Yeah.
She just wasn't giving up the nanny to Moody. That's why
it's young love. They're not thinking about consequences and in the future and what if. They just thinking about how they feel about each other right then and there.
I don't even feel like she disliked Moody. I felt like, especially there's this thing about younger women being with older, more experienced men. I felt like Moody was just too inexperienced for her. And she was in a period where she wanted something more experienced and adventurous, someone older to make her feel more significant. And Trip was older. Trip is older than her. The only reason she's in his math class is because she advocated to be put in that class. They're not in the same grade.
I don't think she did that to be close to him.
No, she definitely didn't do that to be close to him. I'm saying, like, their Trip is older, so they're not in the same age range. And I feel like she is attracted to Trip because he's older and more experienced.
Yeah. It's kind of like she's shooting her shots all over.
Yeah.
Like she's trying to get as much as she can.
Kind of like her mom, if you think about it. I mean, she didn't take it that far in age, but her mom had some older experiences too.
Well, I'm really disappointed. First of all, she needs to talk to her mom more or she needs to talk to somebody, because you're not about to take me to no abandoned junkyard, whatever that was, to hook up, because no.
Was that the same junkyard that she went to with Moody with the bikes?
It looked like it.
That's real.
Like it looked like freaking like scabies and bed bugs and shit probably like crawl out on
That's
whatever.
probably how Moody knew the spot. Remember, he kept talking about how, Trip was with all these chicks? I think because he was following him because he wasn't getting no play at the time.
Ew. So wait, is Trip out here hoeing?
Remember, he was before he got with Pearl. He would always be talking about how he's hanging out with the Jennifers and all this shit. Did he say that? He said 2 girls. Maybe I made up the Jennifers.
So I mean, they obviously
the Jennifers, I think.
So they obviously went to this place for like more privacy and to ensure that they don't get caught, especially by Moody.
That's how Trip was introduced, as this guy when he first came to the breakfast table, as this guy who's always around girls. And, they were looking at Moody like, you ain't getting no play. Moody was looking at him like, how does he do it?
Yeah.
A lot since then.
And it really sucks too because this is why I don't like the dynamic between Pearl and Trip, because I know that Pearl is gonna get hurt. Um so Pearl says, I don't want to be like my mom. I want to tell them the truth. Meaning she wants to disclose her and Trip's relationship. And then Trip is kind of like, yeah. And then so Trip and her go to his house. Trip's arm is around her and stuff. When they get out, Moody sees it. They get inside the house, and it's almost as if they're about to say something about it, but then Trip is like, well, Moody's upstairs. You want to hang out with him? See you later.
He didn't know what to say. What was he gonna say to his mom? Hey, I took Moody's girl, yo. Here she is. You know her. Like, what do you
But
think?
my thing is, don't fake the funk with me. If I tell you and you hear me clearly, you're not dumb, and I say to you, yo, let's tell people about us, and you say yeah, or you respond in a way that is in agreement, and then when it comes time to do it, you back out like that, I'm not fucking with that.
Well, she could have said something.
He's a coward. That's true. She could have said something too, but it's also kind of like she's in their house. She's younger. She's an other. Like, I understand why it would be important for him to say it, not her.
She's comfortable with Elena. They have a relationship. Remember when she tucked her in, or when they were in the bedroom and she was gonna spend the night at her house? They seemed to be comfortable with one another. So I'm not even certain that Pearl didn't tell Elena when they had their little heart to heart. Who says that Elena didn't exchange that information that she exchanged, and then Pearl in return exchanged the information she exchanged about Trip? It could have been a quid pro quo.
Ooh, let's get into that. What did you think about that whole scene?
I feel like they did a good job of not actually showing us, not actually telling us, but showing us that Elena spilled the beans. The secret we knew all along, Elena told. Game over. So now it's war. I think even when Mia approached them in front of the house and saw the way Pearl was acting, she didn't have to ask her. She looked over in the car. She already knew what it was.
That's so evil. It was not her place to tell her that, and she didn't tell her because she cared. She told her to get one over on her mom.
She absolutely did. But I feel like, again, that's Elena and her control dynamic. She loves to control shit. She's been trying to push her husband, Bill, to do it. Say it. Expose Mia. She's been pushing since the beginning.
She
Bill,
needs
I
to
want you
be
to
held
expose her.
accountable.
He didn't do it. So she was like, well, look, if he's not going to do it, I'm going to do it. And I'm going to do it where it hurts the most, because other people are not doing what I say. Like, she's just so controlling. She needs help.
She does. And that's crazy that you said that, because other people are not doing what I say.
And
That's
she has such
insanity.
a strong desire to be the victim. It's like, yo, how are you the victim? You're the aggressor.
Like, don't you see you're the aggressor in all this shit? Like, don't you
realize that? She's like, it's her fault.
Like, you are literally doing everything. Like, wow.
I think she's so used to being like this perfect woman. At one point, she had it going on. At one point, she was the best worker. At one point, she was, the best wife and mother, because everybody couldn't have, her friend couldn't have kids. So she was the one everyone envied, because she could have the kids, and she had healthy babies, and she was wealthy, and she had this job. And at one point, she was good at her job. So it's like, everything just all kind of came crumbling down. She doesn't have any type of control anymore. The only control she feels like she could get is over people who she feels are less fortunate than her. And that's not even working out because people who are less fortunate than her are proven to actually have more than her. She's measuring currency in a way that is material, like in a way that other people might not see as valuable. Mia never looked at money as valuable. She saw wealth in other things, as where Elena couldn't do that, and that's why she doesn't understand Mia, and that's why she can't get how this woman just came up with money. Like, you mean to tell me you chose to be poor?
Yeah.
What?
Well, I mean, I think you're right in that Mia doesn't um, look at monetary things as, she doesn't aspire to like wealth or anything. Um, but I do think that she sort of kept the secret and kept Pearl and her living conditions the way she did because she had to, according to her. I think if the circumstances were different, she would have made other choices. But I do agree that she doesn't, have this connection to money like Elena does.
Yeah. If I were Pearl, I'd be pissed. I understand why Pearl is upset because Pearl's been living in her car as a teenager, no space, nothing to call her own. Not popular because she doesn't have the material things and doesn't have the wealth. Never really even had a place to stay. And her mother had other choices and other options to provide for them. So I'm sure she was telling her that they were poor or
But
that's what
if
they had.
she but if she were to sell that, then her cover would be blown. Pearl means more to her than the cost of a room and fancy things and whatnot.
You're right. Her cover would be blown. So, but I wonder what changes now. She sold it. So, does she have a
Right.
plan in terms of what she's gonna do?
Which is why she's so connected to that photo and to BB. The fact that she sold it and was able to um deal with the and is able to sort of deal with the consequences or with the aftermath of it is pretty telling.
But you do bring up a good point. The fact that she was hesitant to sell it because she didn't want to blow her cover. What is the difference now? Is BB winning this case? Like, it's a high profile case. She kind of catapulted herself into it, whether she sold it or not, she
Yeah.
funded it or
And
not,
that
being a part of it. She's
yeah.
blowing a cover.
And that's why she said, "You know what? Mia is sneaky too." Because remember at the opening one of the opening scenes or whatever, the lawyer was talking to BB and to Mia. And Mia was like, "Oh, well, just because I want to make sure BB knows, is there going to be any media outside?"
Yep, I
So
remember.
that wasn't for BB, that was for her. And
Hmm.
then they go and they see media outside.
But I wonder why she wants me. Like, I don't know if she was asking to protect herself or to hide herself,
She
or if she was
is.
asking because she wants to be seen. Because her picture is
No.
in the New York Times, all fucking ready. Like, too
Yeah.
late.
No,
What
she
are you doing
doesn't want to
now?
be seen. She doesn't want to. She had to post it. I think she there was no choice. Like somebody took the story and printed it.
Yeah, they probably printed it because of Elena, saying that it was a case that was near and dear to her, and saying all that nonsense. They probably printed it because of Elena.
No, they printed it because it was it I guess her professor had some
Popular.
sort of
Okay.
status. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I do remember that.
So uh, in terms of the aftermath, I think she's gonna be confronted with Pearl being taken away from her in some way. And I feel like
Yes.
Mia definitely burnt that house down. If it wasn't Mia, it was definitely Izzy.
I
Or it
don't
could have been Pearl.
I don't understand Mia because, like, now it's kind of making it seem like she values, and I know this is not the case, but it's making it seem like she values BB's situation over her own daughter.
Yeah.
That's not
Yeah.
how it's making it seem.
Yeah, that's why I didn't understand that's why like the connection that she has to that photograph and just what it means to have have Pearl. There's a weird connection there because she's able to blow her cover for BB, but she feels so strongly about BB having to have her child. And she feels like she's BB. And even in the trial, not the trial, but one of the court sessions, um, she's very impassioned when she talks about how BB is her mother because BB had her through her body. That is her. She was very adamant. It was a very powerful scene. And then Bill sort of quips and says, well, I'll defer to the court. I'll defer to the court's decision on that.
That reminded me of Losing Isaiah, because there was a scene in Losing Isaiah too, when the woman, I don't want to say the white woman, but they kind of did make it play like white and black. She said to Holly Berry, "You people always make it about color," and Holly Berry was like, "You people," and she said something along the lines of, well, Isaiah, when you think of you people, like, that's Isaiah too. And when you look at me and you see me, he's part of me. He's me too. So there is like really this huge connection to Losing Isaiah. I wonder if they were inspired by it when they were creating this show.
Probably. But
Especially
the book is based off of, the show's based off of a book.
yeah, I wouldn't be surprised.
Yeah. But yeah, this was such a good episode. Like, oof.
I loved how everything that was done in the dark was coming to the light, like Lizzie and her friend Izzy and her friend's relationship, Mia and her little omission of truth regarding Pearl and why they were living the way they were living, and then like Pearl and Trip and their relationship, and then Brian finally, exploding, revealing, why he's been the way he's been with Lexi and his racial frustrations with her.
How would you feel if you were Izzy and you saw all of those pictures cut out? You cut out of all those pictures in the garbage.
I feel like it's difficult with Izzy because I feel like she's still so young. So it's like, I don't feel like she understands how every action has a reaction. Like, I feel like she just doesn't get that. She was doing that intentionally just to mess with her mother because she wanted to be this individual when everyone else didn't want to wear the tartan either. Everyone else said they didn't want to do it. The husband said it, one of the brothers said it, but they just swallowed their pride and did it. And Izzy was the only one that had to be difficult. So I feel like she should have known that there was some type of repercussions for behaving that way. What did she think was going to happen? She thought they were just going to send the photos off. You know how Elena is. Elena's paying for the photos. You know how Elena is. So what did she think was going to happen? You thought she was just supposed to keep her in the photo? I feel like it was messed up of her to cut her out. But at the same time, like, you're the only one that didn't respect it. If your school says, dress code, or if there's a party and it's an all white party and you come in wearing purple, you can't be mad if they kick you out.
It's kind of like they go back and forth with each other because they had that big old argument before the photo. And then Izzy's like, all right, I'm going to show her. And then she does this sort of act of rebellion. And I think you're right. Like, yeah, there's a consequence for shit.
I feel like Elena is like the perfect example of, well, the rules are the rules. And then here comes Izzy, like, the rules are meant to be broken. Like, she wants to break the rules all the time. And Elena is so damn traditional. She's like, no, tartan. You have to wear tartan. You have to do this. This is not how Shaker is. Like, she's just so damn traditional and so uptight. She can't do anything out of order. Where everything Izzy does is out of order and it's intentional.
So even though it was fucked up, just like visually for Elena to do that? How do you think she should have handled that situation? Like, what would make their relationship better?
You know what I would have done if I were Elena? Because I feel like what she did was petty. They already had photos. She should have just been happy with the other photos and just sent out the other photos. She was happy with them before. She was happy with those photos before she found out that her daughter got into Yale.
No, she wasn't, because in the opening scene, she's like, Moody looks like his face is like made up like a squirrel. Da 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 da. It was very like subtle, different, like mishaps
Oh,
with the photo.
you're right, because this is a different time where you don't see the photos until they're developed and ready. Like it wasn't like there were digital cameras where they could take the photo and actually see it. That wow, I didn't even think about that. Like, do you remember the Flintstones? Like, because you know the Flintstones was supposed to take place during this dinosaur era. So in the Flintstones, they like have to get some rock. It was the Flintstones, right? Where they had the rock and they take the photo, or was that the Crudes? It might have been the Crudes because it was so old that was how they took photos. I think their photo process is showing this show's age because it took place in the 90s where digital cameras didn't exist. So they couldn't see the photos until they were developed. That's so sad.
And it also speaks to their affluence to be able to not like these photos and have someone come into their home and do a photo shoot. It's just, wow.
Exactly. Just someone just happens to swing by your house after dinner on the holidays to take a photo.
Just to send to people to like everybody's keeping up with the Joneses. And I feel like also, to my question about like what does Bill see in her? And I feel like what he sees in her is a good mother. He sees somebody who will take care of the home like a good wife should, like a good mother should. He feels like she's like like the perfect partner. But we see that starting to backfire and starting to not be enough.
I agree. I agree a lot. Like, I think that makes a lot of sense because I feel like Bill, you know, how everyone else's name is allegorical. I feel like Bill's name is allegorical too. Because there was a scene in this episode where she was walking in and he was like, oh, he's just paying the bills. You know, Bill is paying the bills because that's what the guys do. Like, the guys pay the bills and the girls are the mothers, the stay-at-home moms who have to give up their jobs. So it's just this underlying message of the men handle the money and the women handle the children. So I think you're right, because since she was always on this mission to be perfect. When she was faced with, you know, now I'm not in school and I want to start a life, I have to be the perfect mother, but I also want to be the perfect worker, but I also want to be the perfect citizen, but I also want to be the best at everything. And it's like, now she's losing sight of being the perfect mother. She's getting into it with every single one of her children. She's getting into it with her husband. So it's like, I feel like Bill is seeing her from a whole nother perspective because she's losing that traditional value. Now, you know, affairs are not traditional. Yelling at your children is not the subservient wife archetype that he's probably imagining when he's thinking of his wife at home taking care of his children. He's not thinking of his wife yelling and screaming. That's why it was such a surprise to him. And he had a comment when he came in from work and she broke all the dishes. That's not the type of woman that Bill wants.
Mm, it's so strange to me. Like that whole dynamic is so strange to me because it makes me think about marriage and love, and if love is a prerequisite for marriage, and it doesn't seem like it is in this situation. It just seems like the next step, what you do in this sort of privileged lifestyle. Um, so yeah.
I feel like women, especially at a time in the 90s, women didn't have as many rights as they do now. And even prior to the 90s, a lot of women married for status and for rights. like if as far back as Eleanor Roosevelt, she was the one who kind of started this whole feminism wave, because she had to tell her husband, Franklin Roosevelt, think of the women. You know, it's the woman's role to influence the man to make the decisions that would change your life. So it's like I feel like that was I feel like that was like a theme in a sense. I feel like Elena had to marry in order to have independence, because she couldn't get a house on her own as a single a woman who has no children and single. That's not a part of what it means to be a female. Like even in the as far back as like the 50s, and perfect example, the Scarlet Letter, when Hester Prynne first got to the area that she relocated to, the first thing they said to her was, who's your husband? Women had to have been spoken for in certain eras. They must have been spoken for, or else they cannot wander around in society. So a husband is like, first you're with your family, and then the husband marries you and takes you away from your family. So now, you know, you're this unit with this other person, but you don't get that freedom until you marry off.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like it's just a status thing. Like I'm this age, it's about time I have a boyfriend. I'm this age, it's about time I have children. I'm this age, it's about time I get married. I think Elena's just rolling with the punches because she feels like that's what people do. Like the rules are the rules. That's tradition.
And so we also see Elena really question Mia when in the beginning scene where she says, and then she posed like she was this poor woman and she has $500,000. And so we see sort of how Elena looks at Mia as this poor, sort of downtrodden person because she's not tied to a man and she's the single parent. So it's like, you don't even need references. You don't need anything. You see what you see and you make all these assumptions. And
I
now look.
I think she doesn't understand why someone would choose. I think her and Pearl are kind of on the same boat, because they're like, why would someone choose to live the life you live if they have means to live another life? I feel like that's what they see when they look at Mia and they find out that she had this money. They're like, why?
Well,
You
Mia
know,
chose
why
it
would
because
you do
she
that?
chose Mia chose it because she chose her daughter over everything.
Elena don't know that because she never had to sacrifice anything.
Right. Right.
Neither does Pearl, because she's too young. She's never really separated from her mom. Like Pearl is just now getting these having these experiences. Pearl just lost her virginity. Like she never really had to make decisions like that either. So it's like the most hardship, well, from what we see, the most hardship that Pearl has had in terms of life experience is dealing with Lexi and all the shit Lexi's doing to her.
Yeah.
I wonder how she's going to handle this moving forward, because she appeared to be very upset when Lexi did this, but she never checked her or nothing. Like she never said anything. Are they still friends? We didn't see them hang out this episode.
No, I think they're gonna drift apart. I think honestly, Pearl is gonna get lost in Trip's world, and Trip is just gonna play her.
You know what I feel like is going to happen? I think if that happens, Brian's going to try to shoot his shot at Pearl, and it's going to cost.
Yeah, yeah, that's what I'm saying. Yo, I feel like their characters are gonna come together somehow, some way.
Yep.
I don't know though. Like, I don't know if it's in the capacity of like them helping each other out, becoming allies. You just never know, and especially too, like if they do get together, and if Pearl is still around, and Lexi has to see this, you already know that Lexi's gonna have some trick up her sleeve.
Exactly. I wonder if it's going to be like that, like the mothers versus the daughters. Like, you know, I feel like it might get into that now, because I feel like Brian is intrigued by Pearl, especially the fact that, now listen to this. What I think is interesting is, do you think there was ever that Black membership group? Because Pearl was using that group as an excuse, but Brian was saying that that group ended a while ago. But did that group ever even exist? The fact that she was using it as an excuse and they're the only people who know about it, we don't know for sure that that's where she was going to begin with.
I don't, probably not. I don't see Pearl as like this like Black Pride person.
It's funny because, and this is what I was saying before, like I don't either. And this is what I thought was so interesting in the last when we discussed the last episode. One of the things I said was at the very end is I wonder why we don't hear any like hip hop music when um Mia was surrounded by hip hop when she was in New York with her teacher. And then they had that Tupac Ambition as a Rider show up in this episode, which I thought was kind of funny because this is the first real like hip hop song we've heard in the season so far. And other than when Brian is in his car, have you ever noticed when Brian's in his car or when Lexi is with Brian, they're listening to rap music? Have you ever noticed that? But we don't hear what it is. You just know that it's like some type of rap music.
No, I haven't noticed.
Every single time Brian and Lexi are together in the car, there's rap music playing in the back, but it's like real low. You can hear it, but you really can't. So it's like, I think that like it's some weird indication. I'm not sure what, but I find it to be interesting because Pearl is not into rap music, and she made that clear. They're very opposite. So I wonder how they are going to come together if they do. Like I would love to see even their interaction in the Black membership meeting. Again, if it did exist, I would love to see what took place there. Were there the only two or were there others?
I think it's interesting how at the end of the scene where everybody's all kind of like down and out, all the kids, all the siblings kind of come together and watch TV.
I love that too because I feel like that was just a time, the 90s, when things were simple. You could watch family shows. Like, what were they watching? Do you remember? Was it Ricky Lake or something?
I don't know, but I know they had it on like MTV one time.
I love that because it's so true to like the era. I love the soundtrack to the series because it's so dated, to the 90s. It's such a nostalgic time where so many things were going on in music and so many things were going on in life that I feel like are markers in the series in general. Like as we were talking about before, the feminist movement, the evolution of hip hop. There's just so many different examples that I love.
Yeah. I like how like the kids just like comforted each other in like silence. I thought it was like, you know how you have like nonverbal communication? I thought that was like a really powerful moment of like nonverbal communication.
I agree. I think that was a nice way to end it too, because I feel like they were all so separate doing their own thing in this
Yeah.
entire episode. And that was the one scene where we saw them all just together back on the couch without Pearl or anybody else, just the family.
Just the family. Yeah.
Yeah. While Elena in there, they all dumped and sad. While Elena in there not knowing she's about to get dumped.
Yeah. And it's funny too because I think I don't know if it was the end of the scene, but Mia and Elena have this stare down when Elena drops off Pearl. And so they just look at each other intently. And so obviously next episode there's going to be some shit going down with that, but I think it's going to be sidetracked by Bill's issues with Elena. I think that Elena is not going to have the time to give whatever she's trying to do with Mia a lot of energy. I feel like Bill is going to sort of turn their world upside down a little. I don't see him shaking things up a lot. I just don't. But I think that Elena will have to settle down and confront that for at least a moment.
I see that happening too. I think Bill's about to shake the table.
He's not happy.
And she doesn't even realize it.
She don't even know.
Yeah, she's too wrapped up in Mia and her own little world. She don't even realize everything is happening like under her, and
And
she
it's
has
like,
no
how
idea.
could you not realize it? He's been snapping at you every single scene he's in with you.
Moody is depressed because of what he's dealing with. Trip
Oh,
is
Moody.
seeing some woman that, she actually knows this is happening all under her nose, Pearl. Lexi got an abortion, broke up with her boyfriend. Her husband is spying on her. Like, all this shit is happening and she has no idea.
No clue because she's wrapped up in in Amia's life.
And she's also wrapped up in trying to hide the whole Jamie thing. Like, what did I do wrong? What did I do wrong? It's Mia, it's Mia, it's Mia. Like, that's what she's too wrapped up in. Like, don't look at me. I didn't do anything wrong. And she don't realize that everybody already knows.
But why do you think that this person who aims for perfection, who aims to be this perfect mother, wife, why do you think that this person is willing to abandon those responsibilities to concentrate on Mia?
Because taking over and dominating her existence shows her the power that she has, because she feels powerless as a woman who's someone's wife. She feels powerless as a mother to kids who are kind of uncontrollable at this point. She feels powerless at her job. Her whole life, she does not have the power anymore. So she's like, this woman's poor, this woman's black, this woman acted like she needed me at one point. So she owes me. She owes me. I took care of her. It's time for her to take care of me. She needs to stroke my ego. I feel like that's important to her. And stroking her ego means asserting her dominance in a way that tears her down.
And that makes a lot of sense because it reminds me of the scene, the book club scene, where Elena was just so elated to have Mia defend her, and how she instantly assumed that they were friends after that. And then fast forward, I think it was the end of that episode where you see Mia saying, no, we were never friends.
Mia was being a little snake-like. However, I think Elena was kind of surprised because she's like, whoa, this black woman who's my maid is smarter than I am, can keep up with all my white friends who are talking about this deep book that no one understands. How is this woman smarter than all of us? I feel like she saw that, honestly, her connections. I think that's how Elena operates. She needs to have, what did that taxi driver say to her? It's good to have friends in high places. I feel like Mia's intelligence is an asset to someone like Elena, because she was able to use it to her advantage to make her look good. Mia didn't say, I think. She said, I think this is what Elena's trying to say. She gave her all the fucking credit. So I feel like she was like, in that moment, this is someone I need to have on my team because they make me look good.
And Mia played into that. She knew that.
Of course she knew that, but she had her own agenda. So she was letting it happen because she had her own agenda. She was too busy. Pearl is mine. Pearl is mine. That's all she was saying. So she was trying to get close to them. And that's all.
I think it's interesting though how all these things are happening under her roof in which she has absolutely no idea of. Her whole world is literally burning down, and all she can think about is Mia.
It
And
sure is. I bet you Monday, what is it? Wednesdays and Saturdays went by, and all she's doing, instead of giving her man some love, she's talking about, what are you going to say to Mia? What are you going to say about Mia? Are you going to get her? Are you going to get her? Like, that's all she wants to talk about.
well,
That's
the
all she
way
wants
it's
to talk
looking,
about.
Bill don't even want that shit.
They
He's
can't even have
probably gonna
breakfast.
turn her down.
They can't even have breakfast without Elena, her
Word.
obsessed ass. The
They
McCulloughs.
can't
Do
even.
this to my
When's the last time you seen them go on a date?
I've never seen them go on a date. Probably when they were like just seeing each other.
No, they've never been on a date. They had their friends over when they were younger for Chinese food.
Yeah.
Well, she had like 2, 3 kids at that point. But we don't see her and her husband really, spending quality time.
That's probably why he was looking at that restaurant like, what? La Risca Glore? Whatever it was called.
Word.
He was like, what?
So,
We don't eat at
so,
places
so
like
you
this.
guys showing me no love, but you out here showing homeboy love at the
Yeah,
restaurante?
exactly. You make your little nasty meatloaf that we don't like with the without the Ritz crackers. That's what you make it for us. Or
Word.
you have a squigliole.
Yo, Billa's not a happy camper.
Her food sucks. Her motherhood sucks. Like the way she takes care of her kids sucks. She's being too busy being Rosie the nosy. It's like
she's miserable.
she really is. And the only bit of happiness she's getting is by trying to tear people down and control them.
Like, it's sad. It's sad. And it really shows you like the ugly. And I think so. The theme of episode 7 was picture perfect, right? And then the last episode was uncanny. And so I think that, again, this whole confronting your ugliness is such a huge theme throughout the series, because for me, I'm just so confused by the decision making, especially of Elena. But to, I guess, what am I trying to say here? I lost my whole point, but it definitely had something to do with being picture perfect and like, and how you sort of can't be. Like, you have to confront your ugly self.
Yeah,
Like
not perfect.
when they were in the bathroom, when Elena and Mia were in the bathroom, I'm telling you, that scene was so powerful to me when I saw it, because I saw Elena's ugly self.
I feel like that's such a great point that you brought up, because she was in front of a mirror. Did you not notice that she was in front of a mirror and still couldn't see her ugly self?
And she was wearing like, and it was just so funny how everything was like designed perfectly. Like, she was wearing like a red lipstick. Like, she just looked like, you know, what, like her shadow,
I
like
feel
her
like
shadow self.
everyone is being confronted with their ugly self, but Elena's the only one where her ugly self is staring her right in the face and she's turning her head looking at everybody else because she don't want to look at it. It's like, you don't see that there. You don't see that monster in your face. You're too busy
Right.
looking at Izzy, pointing out what she's doing
Right.
wrong, looking at
Right.
Mia, what she's doing wrong, looking at everybody but yourself. 4 fingers are pointing back at you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I'm curious about blame too, because I feel like, all right, yes, we understand that Elena is intentionally being, I just say evil. She's intentionally being evil, whether she agrees with that or not. And I feel like she does in some way, right? But she feels like justified in it, which makes her keep on going. So is you mentioned a lot that, she's the aggressor in this situation. She's the one to blame. Is she?
Elena?
Yeah. Is she the one to blame for who she is?
For who Elena is? Elena is not the one to blame for who Elena is. Elena is the one to blame for what Mia's life has become, in a sense. This, I'm holding your secret hostage because you're supposed to do what I say. And I think it messes with her, because even though she tried to control the end result, she couldn't control the end result. Like, she couldn't control her own fate. The whole point was to embarrass Mia, and then it didn't even happen. So then Elena again was confronted with the fact that she has no control. She has no control over her husband and his decisions, no control over literally anything. She thought her husband was supposed to be on her team because her husband was taking the case. She tried to see that as a win, because her friend is mad at her, because her friend has put the pieces together and realized, look, your maid is the one who did this to me. Mind you, if they divorce, that's probably going to be the friend that she's going to have to stay with. So she's trying to get back in good graces with this friend, and she thinks her husband, she could use her husband as a pawn to get her husband to shame Mia and to bring her down so that she'll feel better. She could prove her allegiance to her friend, but that didn't happen.
Yeah.
Elena can never do her own dirty work. She got the cop coming. She got her husband. She's trying to be like the voice in his ear. She's trying to be the Eleanor Roosevelt. Like, it's not gonna happen, Elena. You cannot make
She
fetch
feels
happen.
she feels empowered when she's the puppet master.
Exactly. She likes to control other people to do things. Like she put the seed in Pearl so that now Pearl could go and destroy Mia because she couldn't get to her. And it's like, really? That's all she's doing. I bet you if they didn't have that little tussle, she would have never even told Pearl.
And then it's like, and it's so sad too because Pearl doesn't even realize that she's a pawn. And now she's gonna give her mother a whole bunch of shit.
Yeah,
And
it's
like, and what it does is it opens up uh Mia and Pearl's world for attack.
Pearl's a pawn and she's also a liability because Pearl is in this rebellious stage where now she hates her mother. She doesn't want to hear nothing she has to say. She wants to act out. I feel like if this
She wanna
doesn't
do
blow Mia's cover,
she feels like she knows better at this point. She just doesn't know who her mom is anymore.
yep. So now if this doesn't blow Mia's cover, Pearl probably will. Because Pearl is not in the right mind space right now. And I feel like Moody protected her. I don't feel like Trip is going to protect her in situations like that. I feel
Yeah.
like she's the more dominant and aggressive one in their relationship. So I don't feel like Trip Trip is probably intrigued by her beauty. Yes, I feel like I get that. But I don't feel like he is the protector. Or I
No,
don't feel like he cares for her like
he
that.
doesn't. Moody cares for her genuinely. Trip,
She's going to learn.
She's gonna learn. Trip
Mhm.
is just, rolling with the tides here. Like,
Trip is just a trip.
he tripping.
It's just a trip for him.
Exactly. And it's crazy because it's like when you're young, you don't even see that. And it's like you're just engulfed by all these like words that people say. And it's like we just get wrapped up in like the beauty of it all when there's no substance to it.
Yeah, I feel like that's happening with Pearl. She's losing her way. I have not seen her pick up the bell jar in a minute now.
Word.
Close
We
to that
see her
girl?
going from this like cute, bubbly, loving daughter who's smart and trying to advocate for herself to get into like her AP classes to this girl who is screaming at her mom, having sex. Like, it's like her world has gotten better, like economically or not economically, but like perceptually, but not like internally. It's tearing down.
It kind of is. And I feel like because her world is tearing down, I feel like, she's nothing, absolutely nothing like Elena. But I feel like she is also kind of taking in that power dynamic where she's not necessarily the aggressor, but like when she's with Trip, she's kind of making the first move. She kind of has a power. She's like, well, it's warm
She
over here
does.
if you want to come over here. He's not doing that.
Yeah.
He's kind of scared.
Yes.
He's older than her.
She's coming into her own.
He's the experienced one, and it's funny when they get together because he's the experienced one, and she from what we know lost her virginity to him. So
Yeah.
the fact that she's a lot more comfortable and the dominant one when they get together,
Yeah.
I feel like it's so interesting.
It's like once you get a taste of freedom, it's like you can't go back, which is what I feel like she's being confronted with right now.
I feel like she's using like sex the same way maybe her mother did, like kind of like an outlet because of what she's going through. She realizes that she has this guy that thinks she's beautiful. He's gonna do what she asks. So when she is in the moment or when she wants it, she is not scared to take it because it's her outlet for her life right now.
I mean, I don't know if I agree with that because I feel like her life is kind of great right now. It's the greatest it's ever been. Besides, this is the first episode where we've seen her and her mom get into a tiff, and we don't see really what everything's going to boil down to until the end of the scene, which is when after Elena, tells her everything, or
Yeah.
presumably so.
I mean, I feel like it's not that big of a deal what's going on between her and her mother because it hasn't fully unraveled. But I
Right.
feel like the social dynamic between like going over their house, that's what she used to do. She can't go over their house. The trial is
Oh
probably
yeah, that's
tearing
true.
her apart because now people know her mom now because of the trial. At the same time, everyone who she hangs out with lives in that house. So her mother was trying to forbid her from going to the house. She can't be friends with Lexi. Who could she be friends with? And she found out Lexi used her name for the abortion. So it's like, things are good, but they're not good. There are still so many things that are happening in her world that are unraveling that she doesn't have much control over, like the whole abortion thing. At that, she doesn't even have the voice to speak up. She's still sitting there being this girl's friend or being this girl's lackey. She never even confronted her about it. This is why I feel like she's
So,
using Trip as like an outlet for the things she can't do. And
oh yeah. Oh my God, and that is so destructive. And I actually thought about it for a split second. I'm like, oh my God, what if Pearl does become a statistic? Like in terms of pregnancy,
you
because we
think
saw
she'll become?
Lexi.
I think that's interesting because the scene where she had Lexi's pregnancy test, I thought that was foreshadowing because we wouldn't have known that it was Lexi's pregnancy test if Lexi didn't speak up. They showed it like it was Pearl's pregnancy test.
All I know is Trip is about to denounce that baby, and the baby gonna come out like all light skin and shit. No, I'm joking.
He's definitely
Um,
not going to say he's the father because that whole light skin shit only benefits when you're in the Black community. White people are not claiming those mixed kids.
no, that's what I'm saying. He's Trip is gonna denounce that that's his baby, but it's gonna be evident. Um, but I mean, I hope that doesn't happen.
I hope that doesn't happen either. I hope that
I
doesn't.
don't, I don't think so, but I feel like it's interesting because their dynamic is only gonna get. It's like everything is set up perfectly for failure for them. Like he's older, he's like a coward. He doesn't really defend her. He's not supposed to be dealing with her because of Moody, anyways. Like everything is just disastrous about it. So how that's gonna implode, we don't know.
We sure don't. Well, we're ready to find
Well,
out.
well, we about to find out. And I
Exactly.
hate that they gave us that teaser in episode 1 about the house burning down because I feel like that's the sort of climactic event. And I feel like what happens with Pearl and Trip could be just as calamitous. Um, I what's gonna happen with Mia and Pearl? Is Pearl gonna be taken away? Like, I don't know.
Yo, I didn't think about it. Who was in the house when Izzy did that? Was
We
Pearl and Trip in the house?
we don't know if Izzy burnt the house down.
Well, the last time we saw her, she had the matches. I mean, we don't know if she burned the house down, but if that did happen because of that, who else was in the house when that took place?
Well, I don't know because remember at that scene where the police was there, um the cop was like, "Oh, where's Izzy?" And then Bill was like, "It wasn't her." So obviously Izzy was away.
Was she? I remember her and her friends being in a car after.
I don't know, but all I know is Izzy was not probably not living with them.
Maybe she wasn't. I wonder. So I wonder what that scene was all about when she was lighting it on fire then.
Somebody lit that shit. They said it. They were like, "Yo, this was intentional."
I do wonder if it was Mia, but I think that would be a dumb thing for Mia to do because Mia is living in their rental. They're gonna need their
Yeah.
rental if you burn down their fucking house.
Yeah.
So I hope it wasn't Mia because that would not be smart on her end. She's already burned her bridges with them. You can't burn someone's house too and then expect to stay in their rental for free. They're not they're not in a good stage right now. Everything is not all copacetic. So you can't be going around doing shit like that.
I don't know, maybe they'll no, it's too late to introduce a new character.
I
But
don't think so.
maybe it's someone that we don't expect it to be.
Who do you think it could be? Pearl?
It could be.
I thought about
Pearl's
it.
character seems to me like she will eventually find out like what's happening, like for real.
I feel like Pearl has motive because what if Mia does end up getting exposed and they try to take Pearl away? She's like, look, if I can't have my mother, then y'all can't have your perfect family. You can't have your nice little house.
Nah, I
The
feel
reason I
like I
about
feel like
Pearl is
Pearl
'cause
would turn against her mom. I feel like Pearl is gonna turn against her mom for
the
sure.
reason I think about Pearl is because how fascinated she was with all the Christmas lights and decorations in their house. She's the only one that noticed her house for what it was. She Trip was saying to her, "Oh, you can come over and see the house." Remember, like that was a thing. Her seeing the house all decorated. So if she was the only one who cared about the house being all decorated, I'm sure she would get a lot of pleasure when she is upset seeing the house burnt to smithereens.
Maybe.
Yeah, you never know. I feel like you never know with Pearl. She's a wild card now. Or it could be Moody because he's mad. You
That's what
could.
I'm saying. Somebody we don't expect.
Mhm.
But in that scene, we do see, I think Moody was a part of the group, but we do see Trip and Lexi and Moody in the car as the house is burning down.
Yeah.
So who knows?
Well, the new episode is coming on next week, right?
Yeah. It's I hope it's not the last episode.
We shall see.
We shall see. But yeah, so thanks for hanging out and we will see you guys next week for episode 8.